Demographer Murray Feshbach makes a rough estimate that by 2020, because of differential birth rates and changing age distribution, only about 30% of draft-age youths in the Soviet Union will be Russian. Already, the ethnic composition factor has forced Soviet military planners to try some important military changes. Nervous about Soviet Muslim troops fighting Muslim Afghans, Soviet generals tried to send only Soviet European troops into the battle zone. That didn't work out. And as this is written, Soviet Muslim troops are now fighting Muslim guerrillas in Afghanistan in a potentially explosive Muslim versus Muslim situation. Another demographic factor worth considering, national life expectancy in the European parts of the USSR has actually dropped in recent years. That is an unprecedented occurrence for a modern developed country. It appears to be a product largely of a plague of alcoholism aggravated by a deteriorating national health system. The decline of life expectancy has not occurred in similar measure in Muslim areas, further accentuating the split demographics discussed here. Get out of my face. All this leaves us with a variety of demographically based scenarios regarding the balance of power between the Soviet Union and the US. We consider 3 here. Scenario 1. The Russians, even as they go from majority to only plurality status in the Soviet Union, will continue to rule an uneasy but relatively more powerful nation of about 300... What the fuck?
Thank you. Go on.
The Russians, even as they go from majority to only plurality status in the Soviet Union, will continue to rule an uneasy but relatively more powerful nation of about 365 million people by the year 2065. Under this scenario, the Soviets gain more power because of a larger labor force, better economies of scale, larger markets, larger GNP, all the reasons sketched out earlier in the previous chapter. Accordingly, it becomes relatively easier for the Soviets to finance their military power over a broader demographic base, and more difficult for us to keep up despite our higher standard of living. Just to stay even with each other, all other things being equal, our per capita defense spending will be going up year by year, while theirs could be going down. Consider this topsy-turvy scenario. A few decades into the next century, it may be Soviet military planners looking at a U.S. struggling with a massive social security shortfall and saying, let's spend them into the ground. Scenario 2. With Russians no longer a majority, Russian interests no longer rule essentially alone in the Soviet Union. Some ethnic power-sharing arrangement comes about. It would continue to be a Soviet Union, as above, that is more demographically powerful relative to the US than it is today. This may not be a happy development for ethnic Russians, but that does not mean it would necessarily be a happy situation for the US. There would still be another nuclear superpower around. Would it still be hostile? Would it still be communist? Probably.
Sorry.
It's okay. Could it eventually be dominated or influenced by a fundamentalist Ayatollah like Muslim? Doubtful, but then again, that's what the Shah thought. Scenario 3. A final possibility is the fragmentation of the Soviet Union. Under such a scenario, the Soviet Empire splits apart under centrifugal demographic pressures as Internal anti-Russian hostility proliferates. Perhaps Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Armenia, and the Ukraine, among many others, become separate nations. The Eastern European nations then go their own way. That is not a likely outcome, but not impossible as non-Russians become more and more powerful inside the Soviet Union. It is an end result that might well benefit the US. Unfortunately, getting from here to there might prove to be extremely dangerous. There has never been extended civil strife in a nation with a large arsenal of nuclear weapons. The most likely scenarios, numbers 1 and 2 above in that order, clearly work to the disadvantage of the US, although probably not irreparably. The Soviets would have a labor force 50% larger than the US, but we might just roll up our sleeves and say, "Thou shalt not be the most powerful nation in the world." Okay. And with our technological advantages, we could probably make that stick, if that's all there were to it. However, even such American resolve may not count for much when one considers the striking decreases in population that are likely to come in Western Europe. After all, how valuable is the West German military ally, the linchpin of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, alliance, if its population drops by almost half by the middle of the next century, and then by 70-80% at the end of that century? Who will be there to defend the flat Germanic plain, the classic conventional invasion route, from the possibility of rumbling Soviet tanks? Moving beyond West Germany, how valuable is the whole of NATO if its population is growing smaller and smaller each year, with ever diminishing its power is ever diminishing, and those adversaries know its power is ever diminishing. Consider what the population projections of Western Europe look like from a military point of view. In December of 1985, the American Enterprise Institute held a conference on consequences of population decline in the West. Among the commentators in attendance were two leading American defense analysts, Edward Lutwak, senior fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, and an author of On the Meaning of Victory, and Richard Perle, the then Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Policy. They each addressed the future of international security policy. They each addressed the future of NATO and West Germany. The following are edited excerpts of their comments. Edward Lutwak. West Germany contributes 12 out of 20 of NATO divisions, the largest bloc, and they are more significant because they are cohesive. And of course, they are Germans, so they really can't help being good soldiers. What the fuck? They are a big chunk of NATO's ranks. Given the demographic trends, the German Bundeswehr will not be able to maintain 12 divisions in the years ahead. That will have a very specific and immediate impact on the military balance. It will be significant each day it obtains, both in terms of a possible war and in terms of perceived balances. There are no stocks when it comes to military power. In the contentions of nations, prestige is a stock. Britain is still living off prestige from the past. Wealth, of course, is a stock. Ammunition is a stock. But in terms of deployed, fielded military power, there are no stocks. If there are population ups and downs, economic and social problems may eventually work themselves out. But in military terms, troops you once had, or troops you will have absolutely no meaning on today's battlefield. You can be destroyed as a result. Oh my god. Because there are no population stocks, demographic fluctuations have a significance in the military realm that they do not have elsewhere. Page 94, Chart 8A, Population of Western Europe, 1985 to 2100. Okay. Source: Special World Bank projection. See Appendix Notes, page 170. Alright. Richard Perel. No matter how effective we are technologically, we are going to require a minimum size standing army made up by the United States and its allies. In countries like the Federal Republic of Germany, it is already becoming increasingly difficult to maintain the minimum size military force necessary to provide a reasonable prospect of conventional defense of German and Allied territory.